Welcome to the Practice Podcast, conversations probing the nature of practice. I'm your host, Dave Fearon. This conversation with Olga Fernandez, founder and president of the Idea Factory, a marketing and communication firm here in Connecticut, tells us a lot about her as a practitioner, but also adds another focal point for our thoughts on practice, and that is distinctiveness, of standing out among the many. And individuals these days who may not have the company's brand to represent them in the moment still has an opportunity and an obligation to themselves to sharpen their message. Who am I in this world? I know it sounds kind of a commercial reason to do that, but yes, there's a commercial aspect to it. We want people to pay attention to us. And that may draw resources that we need in this crazy world of turbulence. But think about what Olga shares in this new venture that her firm has started called Sheep Don't Bark. Well, I've been looking forward to a chance to actually introduce Olga Fernandez to the podcasting world. When she learned that I've transformed myself into a fledgling podcaster, she was quite curious and perhaps will be adding podcasting to her repertoire. Olga is the president of a company called the Idea Factory, which I've known for over 20 years, as well as, of course, her. And I've always loved that title, but she's always evolving. And so you're going to find Olga not only on the Idea Factory webpage, but you'll now hear about Sheep Don't Bark. Now, I had to say that very carefully. Sheep don't bark, in part because if I said it too fast, it might sound rude, sheep don't bark, but I'm not going to do that. But Olga, as we begin our conversation, first, tell us a little bit about the Sheep Don't Bark piece, and then I'll throw something at you to see what you have to say next. But Sheep Don't Bark.
Well, hi, Dave, and thanks so much for having me here. As always, it's such a pleasure to talk with you. I love how we flow, hither and yon in our conversations. And I'm really looking forward to that. I feel like I'm in a whitewater raft with barely a seatbelt or a helmet. So take me where you want to go. The Idea Factory was started back in the 90s as a boutique marketing firm, working with organizations to help them communicate their unique value. And recently, I wanted to raise the bar. And so we developed sheepdon'tbark.com, and that is a program from the Idea Factory that really, really gets right down to it. And there's a great process that we've put together, and we work with organizations to really help them pinpoint, articulate, and leverage to promote their unique differentiation for growth. So it's a lot of fun, it's a lot of work, but it's very rewarding because once you find that truly your unique, not just niche, but why and how you're very different from all those boys and girls around you, that really gives you the ticket to the amusement park where you can get to go on all the rides over and over again and, really take your business into whatever realm you want to go. So
the Willy Wonka golden ticket.
Yeah.
Well, I had thought prior to this conversation that I would put out one of my silly starts that I've used before, but turns out not to be so silly, particularly with what you just said. I was thinking about that game or puzzle called Where's Waldo? And there are whole books of Where's Waldo, and he is, or she, who knows, is in the midst of a jumble of people at the beach or the amusement park or wherever there's a crowd, which dates this already because crowds are no longer something you're going to see around. So it'll be a lot easier to find Waldo out there with his mask. But I've always thought you as having a particular gift for having an eye for finding Waldo. And in our conversations and the work you do, Waldo being that one character among all who is recognizable only if you try real hard to find him. And I suspect that part of the sheep don't bark process is to raise Waldo up from the masses and maybe put a bigger red stocking cap on and add a little color to his stripes. But I believe you have that gift. Now, you can deny it or you can accept it. What is your thought?
Well, since I'm on your show and I want to be polite and I want to make you look good as well as potentially myself look good, I will accept it. It's a challenge and we'll talk about it. I'm teasing. I think I do have a little bit of that knack. And fortunately, nowadays, with so much data, analytical data through Google and other sources, it's really no longer a knack. We start with a hunch. We have very qualitative techniques that we use to draw out what our clients think about themselves and what their clients think of them. And then we delve into the world of data, and we're able to use very tangible, realistic information to show companies where they are now and sort of where they need to be to get to the opportunity spots. Mm-hmm. So that has given me a lot more tangible, credible, if you will, basis for this work. Years ago, when I first started in marketing and advertising in the late 80s and 90s, it was very hard to really measure. I mean, you had readership studies for advertising, and then you'd see, if anybody was paying more attention to buying your product, but it was very, very hard to quantify what your investment in marketing was really doing. Now it's so much easier. And also it was very, very difficult to really know where those opportunity spots were about to open up in the marketplace or were already open and you were either ahead or lagging. Because you'd have to do all these market research studies and trending and forecasting, where now there are so many tools online, and we have certain proprietary tools that we created that we use, where we can really look at data in a lot of different ways. And there it is, it's black and white. And then it's really up to the client. Are you ready to do what we know you really can do? Are you ready to put your money where your mouth is? And are you ready to put your team together in the way that would most maximize and leverage those opportunities so that you really can pivot for growth? Really depends on their wherewithal, their bandwidth, and frankly, how much do they really believe in themselves and how strongly are they willing to fight for a better future?
Yeah. Wow. Boy, we have met often over the years, my campus being just down the road from where your offices were, the Idea Factory's offices were. Yeah. So I loved going up there for a coffee, or we go out for a salad. And what I'm thinking now, listening to you, is you've gone a long way from hunch and intuition and the creative aspect of that, but not so far away that it's not still there. You've been able to bolster that overall approach to a particular possible client, which I think is you growing over the years. But you don't have you don't work alone. You've always had some others working with you.
Oh, yeah.
When this data aspect, which is very much of the times, how did that come into your personal practice, Olga? From whom? And I know you had to do a lot of learning too, but that's kind of an interesting transition that you've gone through.
Well, yes, it is interesting, and it was necessary for us to be certainly relevant, but also to be able to bring more value to our clients. So several years ago, I met this digital strategist, a young guy, really smart. Actually, I always like to introduce him saying that he's so smart that if he were on the opposing team, I would be really scared. but I'm very proud that he's on our team. Anyway, being a digital native and, kind of growing up with, in a Google world and in a data world, he and I knew very quickly that the hunches that I have and the intuition that I have and, my team has, were pretty much spot on. I mean, through years of experience and understanding clients and watching how things happen and being able to really listen really well during those initial conversations that I'll have with the clients, you start to get a really, really good idea of what the company is doing really well, what the company could certainly improve upon, and sometimes where they would be better suited. And again, that's a little bit of intuition and just having the industry knowledge. But now, enter data. Now being able to really look at what's trending, keywords, searches, this and that, who else is in that space, what conversations are happening from other quote unquote competitors or other companies and customers in that space. We get all this information and then we're able to really advise our clients. But we do it collaboratively with them. We're not like the old school, like organizational development or transformation consultants where they would come in and they would take their blanket approach and like spread it all over the company and say, okay, now you're going to do this. That's not what we do. Everything that we do starts with a deep conversation with the leadership teams, with all the staff. Everybody has a voice. Everyone participates, because behind every great brand and behind every growth opportunity, there must be a culture that is very much intact, and everyone needs to be looking outward in the same direction and believing in that direction and desiring that direction equally. Once all that is in place, a company can do anything.
Wow, that's a lot there. I'm back to my friend Waldo here. Conversation precedes a lot of everything else that you do and will do. And to me, culture is really mainly revealed through what people say in the moment when either asked a probing question or asked for an example. And so, in a way, there's a lot of different people in the crowd if you're going to be talking with people in a company, from senior leaders to the folks who are directly involved with customers. But the Waldo and the culture, to me, and see what you think of this, is the specialness, the the uniqueness that they've composed in their work together with over time. That once that is, and I've seen you do it, once you bring that out and you say, did you know that this is what I'm picking up about what you've said about you and this company? And they go, whoa, that's us. And you say, well, consider it. So tell us a little bit about that magic, because you do bring those things out, and you don't just bring them out, but you put them together in sort of a word picture that I think is pretty remarkable.
That's interesting. No one's ever really asked me to describe how that happens. So the pause that probably you'll be editing out of this audio.
It's a trade secret I'm asking for now.
No, it isn't. But it's interesting for me to put it into words. Listening is essential to everything. And by the way, let me back up and say that I really love what you said about the culture. That specialness that's there. Culture is like a list of ingredients, right? And all the ingredients are different and unique, and they all come into play into the big thing pot. And when they all come in with the right intention and the right tune, like just something incredible happens. But yeah, every single organization has that something that makes them definitely unique and can, when really cultivated, become what will define them within their quote unquote peers in the marketplace, and will give them an advantage if that's recognized and carefully nurtured and tended to. And I think sometimes it really, we're all so busy. We all just get to work every day and we're in it. We're in the doingness of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes really it can be as simple as someone who is very good at listening and watching and observing and putting those pieces together to reflect back to them and to help them have that moment where they realize it's not so much the doingness, but it's the beingness, and
Uh-huh.
how that beingness is manifesting and what that beingness is manifesting. I know this sounds a little woo-woo, but
No,
that's
not at
really,
all.
that's kind of like really where it is. And
Mm-hmm.
then finding the right words to
Mm-hmm.
articulate it in terms of a deliverable value point
Mm-hmm.
for their customers.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it gets really interesting. And that's when it becomes tangible.
And I can see now the old and the new here kind of mingling, because you've always had, as long as I've known you and admired you for this, that ability to be with people and tap into the being level and not just the obvious doing or the paperwork. You developed that ability
Mhm.
and beautifully. But the other sort of part of the system that you're bringing out now is that, okay, I know, and here's Waldo, here's your specialness. See,
Mhm.
now out here, what data shows us in terms of the trends in the marketplace, or where, all of that, is where your specialness might have much more uh, binding power to a group of customers than you ever thought. So it's not like you're special, take it out into the world. You're special. And by the way, here are a couple of places where that is likely to really be appreciated because it's different and people are not buying these days and probably won't for a long time to come. What's easy to buy alone, priced and all that. They want to know, are these people who are selling me this, my people, am I feeling right about rewarding them with my dollar? And so
Exactly.
I think a lot of that's going on and will go on forward. So you're blending those two together quite
Exactly. I mean,
remarkable.
sheep don't bark. We believe, and it's right on our website, we state it like as a belief statement, but we believe that every organization, every company, no matter their size, their scale, no matter their product, even if they're in a commodity market, highly crowded, highly congested commodity market, even in a horrible economy, every organization, every company has a uniqueness. And there is a sweet spot for them somewhere out there in the marketplace. And it's not as difficult as timing a moon launch. There is a way to find those spaces where they can uniquely occupy, the spaces that they can uniquely occupy and really expand the opportunities for their organization as well as for customers out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, customers get so used to buying what's available.
Exactly.
It's the one that comes along and takes what's available and gives it to them in a whole new way that gets the attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the whole thing behind Sheep Don't Bark. We came up with it because when you see a bunch of sheep, it's just that monochromatic, bland tone, look, everything about it is all the same, just like what's going on in the world so frequently. Everyone's the same. No one wants to take a risk. No one maybe wants to stand out so much. Everybody's, they say they do. They say they're different, but they base it on price, quality, service, and those are not differentiators.
Mm-mm.
But then you get, even Starbucks, coffee's coffee. Even Dunkin' Donuts, they have a fairly strong, loyal customer base, but they just did something different and part culture, part everything. And now suddenly those brands are the leading brands. Look at all the great brands. Look at Apple. Look at, we could go on and name a lot of them. And people listening to this podcast who are maybe smaller businesses, they'll be, yeah, but those are the big brands. That doesn't apply to me. I can't afford that. Yeah, sure. No, it can apply to everyone. It can apply to one individual who's a sole proprietor, a small company who's starting out. It doesn't matter. It really is finding what that is about you that, like we said, can occupy that unique space and expand the opportunities not only for yourself or your business, but for your customers.
Yeah, no, I think we both know quite a few independent service makers in the networks that you and I've been participating in recent time. And so everyone I know of in those networks very much would like to be found.
Mhm.
And one of the things we've been doing during this weird period is developing on our personal uniqueness. What is it that I am, despite the loss of my title or the place that I held in my office or all the rest? I mean, who am I? Am I wearing the striped shirt and the red hat enough so that I can be found once the fog lifts? So yes, at the individual level as well as the massive organizational level, but I still think it gets down to being found. Now, tell us a little bit of the magic that you then work. And I've seen you do it recently, not only with your wonderful new web page, but one that you've been helping a small firm who's getting off the ground launch. You have to make pictures. You have to make words. You have to make that story almost at a glance, Olga. And you've been crafting that skill for a long while with the help of Jim and some of your other colleagues. But still, it gets down to that story now has to be very easily noticed, absorbed, and believed.
Right. Yeah. And, here lies the whole, we could have like a many hour discussion on how this happens. And okay, just really quick. It's by writing really powerful blog posts that, maybe even take the contrarian position, that bring a new idea or a new thought, new belief, new technique, something new in every single blog where it's really bringing value. It's understanding, again, the key search words and phrases that are being used, but repurposing them in new ways so that people can, not only will you rank, but you'll, when people arrive, again, you're delivering messages with far greater value and expansive possibilities. And also, in the building and the dressing up, if you will, of the brand, it's very important to have the right words to describe and to describe the value that you bring to the marketplace in terms that visitors can understand exactly, like, how does this apply to me? What the WIFM, we used to call it the WIFM, WIFM, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
That's really all the customers are looking for. And if you
Of course.
can show them what's in it for them, and that is going to dramatically improve their condition or their position or their ability, right? It's the value chain. So how are you now going to make your customer more valuable so that they will be to their customers? And so you advance that value chain. And then, of course, in the creation of all this, there's the tagline. It's sometimes to less sophisticated customers, it's undervalued, but there's so much power in that 1 to 5 words, that little thing that hangs off of a company's logo. It tells the whole story there if it's done really well. And yes, strong blog posts and SEO and all of that are essential to bringing people to your website. But when they arrive, it's that moment, that probably 1/10 of 1% of a second, you have to make an emotional impact. You have to have them look at your website and go, wow, what's this? And get that feeling like this might just be the thing. And if you can
Worth
create,
another 25 seconds of thought,
right, and if you create that initial impact and then they come in, you got it.
Wow, that's amazing. What's the tagline for your new website for Sheep
For
Don't
Sheep
Bark?
Don't Bark, again, it's all about, the sheep don't do anything, right? But it's the barking dog that always gets your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason that sheep never get ahead is because, like, no one stands out, no one dares to bark. And so the position line for the tagline for Sheep Don't Bark is make a different sound. And if you
Ooh,
want to get ahead, if you want to stand out, that you have to make a different sound.
I
And it's
love it.
such a crowded house, and it's such a cacophony, and everyone's screaming, and when everything's louder than everything else, it all sounds the same.
Yeah.
And the only way that
Yeah,
any organization or person can ever cut through. Make a different sound.
I love it. I can, Waldo's out there going, "Hey, hey, I'm out here, I'm out here." Uh, but I do think that the way my brain works, and I think yours and mine are somewhat in the same set, is I think in many times in terms of music or art or all kinds of metaphors and analogies. I never metaphor I didn't like,
I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to use that.
But as a teacher, it helped a lot because I could take a very complex organizational behavior concept or even a whole course and give it something so different that the students went, "Huh, oh, really?" Yeah. So, for example, my innovation course, and I believe you spoke to it once, is I decided the whole course in innovation should be about creating songs between woe and go. That was it. That was the whole scenario. You're going to learn to tune into woe because that's what business people are about. You're supposed to be listening to see what people want and need. When they say, "God damn it, if only," you want to have an ear right there going, "Oh, I get it. Oh." Now, the key, though, and this is everything you've talked about so far in this conversation, Olga, is the go. Okay, what am I going to go forward with? Same thing, got to be different. Okay, now let's get our heads together and start thinking about how to convert that woe into a go for that particular customer. And then pretty soon you can spread it out the whole lot. The book that they read for that course was the Willie Nelson autobiography. And I play Willie every week, a segment of Willie. And here's why, because this is the other part, really good for the COVID months that we've been into. Willie lost everything, as you recall. He wasn't paying attention to whether his business manager was paying his taxes, and suddenly he owed like 25 million bucks, and he didn't have that much change in his pocket. So he just lost everything, his houses, but he didn't want to go through bankruptcy. So he committed to making all that money back, paying off his creditors. And so Willie's quote that I used again, back to our point, was, "I have a guitar and I can think of songs, so I'll always make a living." Guitar, and I can always come up with songs. And most of his songs to this day are about things that woes that he's had. I'm in a room looking at a window, but it was magical. And look at how he got all his money back and more, and he's still now he's almost 90, still pumping it out there. And so are you, but you're not in your 90s. You're younger than my shoes. But we're moving toward, I'd love to get your reaction to what I just burbled here, but I want to signal that we're getting close to our time.
Okay.
Okay. So what's your thought about old Willie and woe to go?
How many minutes or seconds do I have?
As much as you need.
Okay.
I own the time. I'm just being.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, I wanted to be respectful, but that's really interesting about Willie Nelson. I did know he lost everything, and a lot of people do. But what he said about, I have a guitar, I have a lot of songs in my head, and so I'll always make a living. That can be said for great companies as well, because when you look at a really great company, it doesn't have to be one of these monster brands. It doesn't have to be like an Apple or Starbucks or, Amazon or anything like that. But when you look at a really great company, what makes the company great is not the product or the service. Those things are transient. Those things can change on a dime, and they should change. They should evolve. They should be like redesigned, re-engineered, improved, whatever, to keep up with the changing needs and desires of customers. But when you really get down to like what's behind those products and those services, it's what we talked about. It's the people, it's the common vision, it's the common desire, it's the burning desire, it's the spirit that makes that company unique. It's not really what you do or really how you do it. It's how you are.
Yes.
And
yes,
I remember years ago, going to a conference somewhere, And this is when I first got this realization. The presenter was at an innovation in business conference, probably out in California. And the gentleman was talking and he said, imagine taking your team and saying, we're like if you're a sneaker manufacturer, we're no longer going to manufacture sneakers anymore and pick another product, but we're going to be equally as powerful and we're going to still remain the leaders, but we're going to start doing something different. He actually charted some companies who completely re-engineered like the products and services, but they kept their culture, they kept their team, they kept all those things intact, and they were equally successful. It really doesn't matter. So that's what I try to say to clients too. The products and services and the pricing and all that matters less than why you're here and how you show up in the world. And once you really have a really strong beat on that, and that's really unique, and that alone is valuable to your customers, they'll buy almost anything from you. They just want to be with you. They just want to join you. They just want to be on the same journey because they know that no matter what comes out of your, what comes off of your shipping dock or what comes out of your organization is going to be something that's going to improve their lives or improve their businesses. And when you really get into that spot, it sounds a little bit like nirvana, but it can happen. And when you really get into that spot of like, trusted partner, anything is possible. Yeah. And expansion is virtually just, it's uncontained.
I love that. I love that this whole podcast and the work that Peter Vale and I started prior to it has been about looking at the individual as a practitioner, as someone who has consciously chosen to pursue results that are increasingly challenging in ever-changing context and environments, and learning and growing because of that. By the choice to be a practitioner and not just do a job, but do it as a practice like you have in the marketing and communication world, going through many changing circumstances and conditions that we know we've been friends for a long time. And yet here you are, full of energy, full of enthusiasm for what's coming, obviously hopeful that it'll work out the way you now see it. My hunch is, and I've got the right gut for this, that the timing of your moving into this phase of the Olga Fernandez practice, as well as the company you run, is perfect. So one day this podcast will be worth millions because you're sharing all your trade secrets here. But it boils down to, I really know my friend Olga Fernandez has a gift for finding Waldo anywhere. That's you. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Dave. This has been an extreme pleasure. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for listening to the Practice Podcast, where we discuss practice with a capital P. If you'd like to hear more, listen in on Spotify, Automatic, and Apple Podcasts, or go to inactionresearch.com/podcast-page. And if you'd like to learn more about social inaction and the nature of practice, head over to inactionresearch.com for more information. Thank you for supporting this show. We look forward to hearing from you soon.